Meghan Markle's shocking humiliation in Geneva finally proves that she has just gone mad.
Meghan Markle arrived in Geneva expecting to be seen as a global advocate for children's online safety. Instead, the internet became obsessed with something else entirely. Within hours of her appearance at a World Health Organization event, social media was flooded with screenshots, photos, and videos showing what critics claimed was an embarrassingly small turnout.
This was the moment, the major defeat on her face when she realized that no one had bothered to show up for what was a catastrophic speech, a hypocritical speech, a speech which blows out of the water every single thing that she has argued in terms of her brand.
As footage circulated online, viewers noticed something unusual. There were no massive crowds. There were no cheering supporters. In fact, several people appeared to walk straight past the event without even stopping to look.
She was assigned to a bus stop. Look at that. Look at in the red circle. So actually, the woman who everyone's saying is there to watch was actually just trying to get home. Meghan's mole pointed out that even the Sussex squaddies couldn't be bothered to go to Geneva to support Meghan Markle.
But that was only the beginning. Because while Meghan was preparing to deliver a speech about protecting children from the dangers of the online world, critics were pointing to something she had posted just hours earlier on her own Instagram account. A photo featuring her daughter Lilibet suddenly became the center of an entirely different conversation, one that threatened to overshadow the message Meghan was trying to deliver in Geneva.
Relentless algorithms, exploitative engagement, and endless exposure to harmful content that they are not seeking out.
I guess 4-year-old Lily didn't seek out her starring role in selling Meghan's outfit either, did she?
And then came another moment. As her speech reached its emotional conclusion, viewers began replaying the final seconds over and over again. A brief gesture, a touch of the nose, a split-second movement that immediately sparked speculation online and added yet another layer of controversy to an event that was already generating headlines for all the wrong reasons.
But there's just one moment at the end, and I want you to watch closely here. She's touching her nose, touching her nose. And I don't know what it's about. I've got some idea of what it's about. And I just want you to watch closely. Let's just give her the benefit of the doubt and think she's trying to do the one tear left eye. She's trying to get some emotion.
We want our children to be safe. Let our children look back.
What was supposed to be a serious international appearance quickly turned into a public relations nightmare. And when the comparisons with Princess Catherine's recent overseas engagements started appearing online, the situation became even more uncomfortable. Because this wasn't just about a speech, it was about optics, it was about timing. And according to Meghan's critics, it exposed a contradiction that they believe she can no longer explain away. The event itself was intended to be serious and high profile. Meghan Markle appeared in Geneva alongside representatives connected to the World Health Organization's discussions on children's online safety. The focus was supposed to be on the growing concerns surrounding social media, algorithms, artificial intelligence, and the impact digital platforms can have on young people.
Meghan posted Mama's Little Helper with the so-called daughter there, maybe shining her shoes, but very much part of the merch sheen operation, because at the front of the shot was the Armani dress and black shoes that Meghan would wear to the event.
Standing near the famous broken chair monument in Geneva, Meghan delivered a speech calling for stronger protections for children online. She spoke about harmful content, addictive algorithms, and the responsibility of governments and technology companies to create safer digital environments. It was a subject that has become increasingly important for both Meghan and Prince Harry over the past several years, particularly through their work with the Archewell Foundation. On paper, it looked like exactly the kind of event Meghan has been trying to position herself around since stepping away from royal duties. An international platform, a global issue, serious policy discussions, high-profile organizations.
And the speech began with Meghan standing in front of that lost screen memorial with virtually no one behind her apart from those few passers-by, and she began by thanking Dr. Tedros.
Thank you for being here this evening. And thank you, Dr. Tedros, not simply for your leadership at the World Health Organization, but for your clarity.
And now Dr. Tedros has posted today that he presented Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex,
Everything seemed designed to reinforce the image of Meghan as a humanitarian advocate operating on the world stage. But almost immediately, attention shifted away from her message. As photos and videos from the event began spreading across social media, many observers focused on something else entirely: the apparent lack of public interest. Several clips showed pedestrians walking through the area while Meghan was speaking. Cars could be seen moving along nearby streets. Tourists appeared more interested in the giant broken chair monument than in the speech itself. Critics quickly seized on the images, arguing that the turnout was dramatically smaller than one might expect for someone who frequently receives international media coverage.
Take away the staff and media required to be there for work, and you'll be left with the flagpole. And of course, this does raise a really interesting point. As Resting Dollface said, nobody's there, so why does Meghan Markle need security? There's a street with cars behind her, no crowds, people walking by, not caring. Nobody cares about what Meghan Markle had to say. She posts her own kids online.
Some online commentators claimed that only a handful of people appeared to be watching. Others pointed out that many of those present may have been staff members, journalists, security personnel, or individuals already involved with the event. Whether those estimates were accurate or not, the perception quickly took hold online that the audience was surprisingly small. And perception can be everything. The images spread rapidly across X, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Screenshots highlighting empty sections of the crowd began circulating. Video clips were paused, zoomed in, and analyzed frame by frame. For critics who have long argued that Meghan's popularity has declined significantly since leaving the royal family, the footage was presented as evidence supporting that narrative. The timing made the situation even more difficult.
You can sum up this faux humanitarian trip in one meme, and there it is, her face as she realizes nobody's there for me, but they were all there for Catherine.
Just days earlier, Princess Catherine had attracted enormous public attention during appearances in Italy. Photos showing enthusiastic crowds and packed public spaces had generated widespread coverage across international media. As soon as images from Geneva emerged, social media users began placing the two sets of photographs side by side. The comparisons were inevitable. Supporters of the Princess of Wales pointed to the contrast as proof that royal status still carries enormous public appeal. Critics of Meghan argued that the Geneva event demonstrated the limits of celebrity activism when it is disconnected from the institution of the monarchy. Whether fair or unfair, the comparison spread quickly, and suddenly, instead of discussing children's online safety, thousands of people were debating crowd sizes. Yet even as the discussion about attendance dominated social media, another controversy was quietly gaining momentum.
One day, generations from now, children will look back at this era with absolute disbelief that adults once allowed digital spaces to exist without basic protections for young people. But let's do something now so that they will also look back and see that during this increasingly polarized time, where people can barely agree on basic facts, that beyond politics or party lines, beyond demographics, incomes, or ideologies, beyond race or religion, we could all universally agree on one thing. We want our children to be safe.
Because while commentators were arguing over how many people had actually shown up in Geneva, others were looking at something Meghan had posted before the event even began. A single Instagram photo, a photo that would soon lead critics to accuse her of undermining her own message before she had even stepped onto the stage. If Meghan's team hoped the Geneva speech would dominate headlines, that plan began falling apart before she even arrived at the event. Just hours before stepping onto the stage, Meghan shared a photo on Instagram that immediately caught attention. The image appeared innocent enough at first glance. It showed Meghan inside what looked like her dressing area, preparing for the day ahead. Near her feet was her daughter, Princess Lilibet, in what Meghan captioned as a sweet "mama's little helper" moment. But the internet wasn't looking at the photo the way Meghan may have intended.
And this is again another example of Meghan trying to cosplay Diana. Very obviously. But she's done nothing for our health. Actually, she's probably been very bad for our mental health around the world, if we're honest, because she just annoys us all so much.
Within minutes, online commentators began zooming into every corner of the image. Hanging prominently in the frame were the very clothes Meghan would later wear in Geneva. The blazer, the shoes, the carefully arranged wardrobe. To critics, it didn't look like a spontaneous family moment at all. They argued that the photo appeared strategically composed, with luxury fashion items clearly visible and perfectly positioned. And that's when the backlash started, because only a few hours later, Meghan would stand before cameras and speak passionately about protecting children from the dangers of the online world. For many observers, the contradiction was impossible to ignore. The same woman warning about children's exposure online had just shared a new image featuring her own 4-year-old daughter with millions of followers. The criticism spread fast. Commentators who normally focus on royal gossip suddenly found themselves discussing a much bigger question. Where exactly is the line between protecting a child's privacy and using that child as part of a public brand? For years, Harry and Meghan have insisted they want privacy for their children.
The cute photo of Mummy's little helper where she used Lily to ensure maximum exposure was just a cover for Meghan to merch the suit and the shoes she would be wearing for the speech. Hence why the shoes and her jacket were angled perfectly at the front. She is despicable.
They have repeatedly spoken about protecting Archie and Lilibet from media intrusion. Yet critics argued that every time a carefully selected image appears online, curiosity about the children only grows stronger. And this wasn't happening in a vacuum. Meghan had already faced scrutiny over previous social media posts involving her children. Earlier family photos had generated headlines across entertainment media, celebrity blogs, and television programs. Every glimpse of Archie or Lilibet instantly became news. That reality made the Geneva timing look particularly awkward. Instead of discussing the details of Meghan's speech, many outlets found themselves discussing her Instagram account. Instead of talking about online child safety, people were debating whether Meghan herself was contributing to the very culture she claimed to oppose. Suddenly, the speech wasn't the story anymore. The Instagram post was. And what made the situation even more damaging was that criticism wasn't only coming from Meghan's usual opponents. Some of it was coming from people who had previously been willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, which made what happened next even more significant.
You know what she's doing there, right? She's talking about her own trolling, because that's what this is all about, mark my words. She wants a censored internet.
One of the biggest problems Meghan faced after Geneva wasn't criticism from YouTubers, royal commentators, or social media trolls. She expected that. The bigger problem was that questions began coming from voices that are not usually associated with anti-Meghan campaigns. And those questions were much harder to dismiss. Among those raising concerns was journalist Tom Sykes, who focused on an issue that many critics had already identified. His argument wasn't about crowd sizes, it wasn't about popularity, and it wasn't about royal rivalries, it was about consistency. Sykes pointed out that Meghan had spent years speaking about the risks children face online, yet had chosen to post a new image of her daughter immediately before a major speech dedicated to that exact issue.
Not showing a child's face does not prevent that child from becoming a social media star. If anything, it manufactures a curiosity gap, the goal of which is that people become more interested, not less, in seeing her face.
The timing couldn't have been worse. According to his analysis, a child doesn't suddenly gain privacy simply because their face isn't fully visible. In fact, he argued that partial images can sometimes create even more public fascination because they encourage endless speculation. And there was another uncomfortable point. Lilibet is only 4 years old, a child that young cannot meaningfully understand social media, a child that young cannot fully grasp what it means to have their image distributed to millions of people across the world, a child that young certainly cannot consent to becoming part of an international conversation. Those observations struck a nerve because they echoed arguments Harry and Meghan themselves have made in the past. For years, the Sussexes have criticized media intrusion into children's lives. Now critics were asking whether Meghan's own social media strategy was creating some of the same problems she regularly condemns. The discussion quickly expanded. Some commentators began questioning whether Meghan's public image had become trapped between two completely different identities. On one side was Meghan the campaigner, the advocate, the humanitarian, the woman speaking at international events alongside global organizations. But on the other side was Meghan the influencer, the lifestyle brand, the Instagram personality, the celebrity whose every post is carefully examined for fashion choices, product placement, and family content. And increasingly, critics argued those two versions of Meghan were colliding.
It is actually gross that she is using grieving parents in this way. But I can't take a word that she says seriously about children and online permissions, given the way that she merched her own daughter 24 hours before this speech.
Geneva may have been intended as a serious policy moment, a chance to discuss regulation, technology, and child protection. But every headline seemed to drift back toward Instagram, back toward celebrity culture, back toward personal branding. The very things Meghan appeared to be trying to rise above. And as the debate intensified, attention finally began shifting back to the speech itself. Unfortunately for Meghan, that wasn't necessarily good news. Because once people started examining her actual remarks in detail, a whole new controversy began to emerge. And this one would place her directly at the center of a much larger political argument about censorship, social media regulation, and who should really control what people see online. By the time Meghan's speech started making headlines, the discussion had already drifted far away from children's online safety. But once people began looking closely at what she actually said in Geneva, an entirely new debate erupted. Throughout the speech, Meghan repeatedly argued that technology companies should bear greater responsibility for protecting young users. She warned about algorithms designed to maximize engagement, spoke about harmful content reaching children, and raised concerns about the rapid development of artificial intelligence.
They didn't know that the platforms valued profit over people. And yet, when we've seen this in other sectors, we did not accept it. We would never accept a food system that knowingly exposed children to harm. We should not accept a digital one either.
Profit over people. You're putting profit over the privacy of your own daughter. So just zip it. Zip it with your faux politician act. I'm laughing at this.
At one point, she compared the current state of digital platforms to dangerous products that would never be tolerated in other industries. Her message was clear. Children should not be expected to navigate potentially harmful online environments without stronger safeguards. And on the surface, that argument resonated with many parents. Around the world, governments are already debating social media restrictions for minors. Concerns about screen addiction, cyberbullying, online exploitation, and mental health have become major political issues. In that sense, Meghan was speaking about a topic that genuinely affects millions of families. But critics quickly argued that the speech was about much more than child safety. Some claimed that Meghan's language sounded increasingly similar to broader calls for greater online regulation and content control. Others pointed to previous statements made by both Meghan and Harry regarding misinformation, online abuse, and digital accountability. As clips from the speech spread online, viewers split into opposing camps. Supporters argued that she was highlighting legitimate dangers facing young people in the digital age.
It's obviously ludicrous. The whole thing is ridiculous. And she's got to start realizing that her own actions are clashing.
Critics claim she was using a highly emotional issue to advocate for tighter controls over online speech. The debate intensified when Meghan spoke about how harmful content can reach children through algorithms and recommendation systems. For some listeners, it was a reasonable warning. For others, it sounded like part of a much larger conversation about who gets to decide what information people are allowed to see. And then there was another issue, the World Health Organization. Many observers were surprised to see Meghan speaking alongside WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. While supporters viewed the partnership as evidence that her advocacy work was being taken seriously, critics questioned why the WHO was becoming involved in discussions that seemed far removed from its traditional public health role. Those questions only fueled more debate. Instead of generating consensus, the speech appeared to create new lines of disagreement.
The Sussex squad is claiming the lack of crowds was due to security, thus saying the streets and sidewalks were closed off to build a perimeter around Meghan. But as she says, when you look at the video, there are people driving and walking by. There were also a lot of tourists taking pictures of the big chair behind Meghan.
Some people praised Meghan for drawing attention to an urgent problem. Others accused her of stepping into complex political territory without offering practical solutions. But while commentators argued over regulation, algorithms, and online safety, social media users became distracted by something far smaller. A moment lasting only a few seconds. A gesture so brief that many viewers missed it entirely the first time. Yet once it was noticed, people couldn't stop talking about it. And suddenly, the internet had found its newest obsession. As Meghan approached the final moments of her speech, she shifted into a more emotional tone. She spoke about future generations looking back on the present moment. She urged leaders, parents, and technology companies to take action. She called for a world where children could benefit from technology without being exposed to unnecessary harm. It was clearly intended to be the emotional climax of the entire address, the kind of ending designed to leave a lasting impression. And for a few seconds, everything seemed to be going according to plan.
She is using the grieving parents again.
Then it happened. As Meghan delivered her closing lines, cameras captured a brief movement. She touched her nose. That was it. A tiny gesture. A split-second action that normally would have gone completely unnoticed. But this is Meghan Markle. And when it comes to Meghan, almost nothing goes unnoticed anymore. Within hours, clips of the moment were circulating across social media. Users slowed the footage down. They zoomed in. They replayed the final seconds repeatedly. Entire discussions emerged attempting to explain what had happened. Some people suggested she was emotional. Others thought she appeared nervous. Some speculated that it was simply a natural reaction under pressure. And many pointed out that it was probably nothing at all. The truth is that nobody knows. Yet that uncertainty only fueled the conversation further, because the gesture arrived at exactly the wrong moment. The speech was already facing scrutiny over attendance numbers.
For a fact, the lack of a crowd bothered Meghan Markle because she was so insecure she just had to tell us what designer she would be wearing that day. Someone who cares about people knowing she's wearing designer, definitely.
The Instagram controversy was still dominating discussion. Questions about hypocrisy were spreading across social media. And now people had another clip to analyze, another moment to debate, another distraction pulling attention away from the actual message. In many ways, it became a perfect symbol of the entire Geneva appearance. Every attempt to focus attention on the cause seemed to be overshadowed by something else. The crowd, the Instagram post, the criticism, the comparisons, and now, a few seconds at the end of a speech. By this point, one uncomfortable reality was becoming impossible to ignore. The story Meghan wanted people to discuss was children's online safety. The story the internet wanted to discuss was Meghan Markle. And that difference was becoming larger with every passing hour. But the biggest problem was still ahead. Because once photos from Geneva started being compared directly to another royal's recent appearance, the conversation became even more brutal.
Zoomed in on the faces of those watching.
And it was a comparison Meghan could never win. If the low turnout raised eyebrows and the Instagram controversy created headlines, the comparison that followed may have been the most damaging development of all. Because almost as soon as footage from Geneva began circulating online, social media users started placing it side by side with images from Princess Catherine's recent appearances abroad. And the contrast was impossible to ignore. Over the previous days, Catherine's engagements had generated scenes that royal watchers have come to expect from senior working royals. Crowds lined the streets. People waited for hours to catch a glimpse of her. Photos showed large groups gathering wherever she appeared, creating the kind of public enthusiasm that has become synonymous with major royal tours. Then came Geneva. Instead of cheering crowds, there were discussions about empty spaces. Instead of viral images of public excitement, there were debates about how many people had actually attended. Instead of headlines celebrating a successful appearance, much of the conversation focused on optics, perception, and whether Meghan's influence had been overstated.
Literally hours before this vital event, Meghan chose to post a photograph of her 4-year-old daughter Lilibet on Instagram, watching her trying on outfits to her 4.5 million followers. Yes, a woman who was about to stand alongside the world's most senior public health official and talk about the measurable and preventable harms of exposing children to social media has just voluntarily, for no apparent reason other than self-promotion, exposed her own child.
Fair or unfair, the comparison took on a life of its own. Critics argued that the difference highlighted something Harry himself once struggled to acknowledge: the enormous power of the institution they left behind. For years, Meghan and Harry were among the most talked about figures in the world. Every appearance generated headlines. Every tour attracted attention. Every public engagement became a major event. But after stepping away from royal duties, many observers began asking a difficult question. How much of that attention had been directed at Meghan and Harry personally, and how much had come from their connection to the monarchy? Geneva reignited that debate in dramatic fashion. Supporters of the Sussexes insisted that crowd size was irrelevant and that the real focus should be on the issue being discussed. Critics countered that public influence matters when someone is attempting to position themselves as a global advocate. If people are not paying attention to the messenger, they argued, the message itself inevitably suffers. The comparison became even more uncomfortable because it arrived during a period when Meghan appears to be pursuing multiple public identities at once.
It didn't look like anyone was there, like, at all. A fan of Meghan's even said she went and greeted everyone who came to watch, which was like 10 people.
On one day, she presents herself as a lifestyle entrepreneur. On another, she promotes personal projects and social media content. Then comes a speech alongside international organizations discussing global policy issues. To supporters, that versatility is a strength. To critics, it creates confusion. And Geneva seemed to crystallize that problem more clearly than ever before. Because by the end of the week, people weren't debating the future of online safety. They weren't discussing proposed solutions. They weren't analyzing policy recommendations. They were talking about Meghan Markle, again. And that may be the biggest challenge she faces moving forward. No matter how serious the event, no matter how important the topic, the spotlight somehow keeps shifting back to the controversies surrounding her personally. Which brings us to the question hanging over the entire Geneva appearance. What was this event actually remembered for? The speech, or everything that happened around it? When Meghan Markle arrived in Geneva, the goal seemed obvious. This was supposed to be a serious moment, a chance to position herself as a leading voice on one of the biggest issues facing modern families. A chance to stand alongside major international organizations and discuss the future of children's safety in the digital age.
And the timing of this, of course, could not be more mortifying when we compare Meghan's crowds to Catherine's crowds in Italy while I was away last week. And as Meghan's mole put it, ha, 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 ha. I mean, you don't need to comment. You don't need to comment, do you? Because you can see them right there.
But that's not how the story unfolded. Instead, headlines became dominated by questions about attendance. Social media became consumed by debates over her Instagram activity. Critics focused on perceived contradictions between her message and her actions. Viewers dissected every detail of the event, from the audience size to the final seconds of her speech. And before long, the conversation had drifted far away from the issue she was there to discuss. Whether you agree with Meghan or not, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Every public appearance now comes with enormous baggage. Every speech is examined through the lens of previous controversies. Every new initiative is measured against old criticisms. And every attempt to reshape her public image seems to generate a brand new debate. That's what made Geneva so fascinating. It wasn't just another speech. It became a test of whether Meghan can still command attention for her causes rather than for the controversies surrounding her. Judging by the reaction online, that challenge may be getting harder, not easier. But what do you think? Was Meghan unfairly criticized for an event that should have been about children's online safety? Or did the Geneva appearance expose contradictions that critics have been pointing out for years? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I want to hear your take on this story. And if you enjoy royal drama, breaking royal news, and the latest Meghan and Harry updates, make sure you subscribe to Crown Clash and turn on notifications. We upload new videos every single day, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.